Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is season 7, episode 6. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have misophonia. This week I'm talking to Lila, a musician and educator whose important work is focused on protecting animals and the planet. She's currently based in Indonesia, although she's there by way of Los Angeles. I have all of her links, her website, YouTube channel, Instagram, in the show notes. We talk about many things, including misophonia while traveling, coping when you don't have your own space in a new place. We talk about being an empath and HSP, shamanism, and some parallels between the state of the public perception of misophonia and that of climate issues. After the show, of course, let me know what you think. You can reach out by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast. By the way, please head over wherever you listen to the show and leave a quick review or rating. It helps drive us up in the algorithms, and that attracts more listeners. Thanks again for the incredible ongoing support of our Patreon supporters. If you feel like contributing, you can read all about the various levels at patreon.com/misophoniapodcast. And I have to mention, if you've seen my Instagram, I just got advanced copies of the book that Dr. Jane Gregory and I did called Sounds Like Misophonia. It's coming this fall from Bloomsbury Publishers, and I'm very excited to see it getting so close. I'm thinking of some content and giveaways to do over the coming weeks, so keep following and stay tuned. If anyone has any TikTok tips also, please let me know. For now, you can find pre-order links in the show notes or on my social pages. They're for Amazon and have affiliate codes, but you can also just pre-order pretty much anywhere, actually. All right, let's get to my conversation with Lila. Lila, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you.
So wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Do you want to first tell us kind of where you are and kind of what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm in Indonesia right now. So that's kind of a whole story. I lost my home in Los Angeles about 6 months ago, and so I decided to do one of those sort of life resets. So
Yeah.
currently I'm here, and in general, I am looking for my new home. So I really don't know where I'll be next, but this is where I am recording live and direct from Indonesia right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean your posts are usually very, very scenic, so I was very
Yeah.
curious to see where exactly you were.
Yes.
Great. And yeah, obviously we'll kind of get into some of that backstory. Do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of what you do generally,
Yeah,
work-wise or whatnot?
absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a musician and an educator. Everything that I do is about protecting animals and the planet. I've had about, I don't know, over 25 of my songs placed in TV shows and trailers and things like that. I write music for superheroes. People who want to make change, who want to make impact. And now that I'm on the road, I'm not able to teach. So I was also teaching with a not-for-profit. I was the Los Angeles
Mm-hmm.
educator with FFAC. So teaching college and high school students about animal agriculture and the effects on climate change. So yeah, again, everything I do is about protecting animals, animal welfare on our planet, the future of our planet. And now that I'm on the road, I've taken my education to online. So doing content creation, I'm very soft launching a YouTube channel right now called Motherfucking Nature. I hope it's okay to swear here. We can always
Yeah, of
bleep
course,
that out.
of course.
So yeah, trying to sort of compile my music and entertainment and education into one space, and that's Motherfucking Nature. And yeah, just soft launching that right now, and we'll continue to refine that as I
That is a great
continue
name,
to.
actually, on many levels. I love it.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank
I mean, Mother
you.
Nature and then Mother effing. Yeah, I mean, it's got the whole, the anger and the passion into
Thank
something that's
you.
important. That's great. And obviously,
Thank you.
I know you're soft launching it, but I like to obviously
Mm-hmm.
post as many links as possible when it
Yeah,
comes time to posting this. So definitely, like, yeah, let's let me know and be happy to promote that if it's ready.
it's ready. Let's do it.
Yeah. Um. Actually, yeah. Do you want to tell us right now? I'll have it in the show notes. But what's the is it just at motherfucking nature.
All
And
of my handles on socials are XX Lila Rose. So that's what it
yes,
is
right.
on
Okay.
YouTube as well. I'll probably change that over to motherfucking nature eventually. I'm still testing that name to see because having a swear word in a name
They
may
might
be
do
difficult.
something about that. Yeah, yeah. But
Exactly. So for now, just XX Lila Rose. That's
yeah.
Lila. That's it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So yeah, I guess coming back to Misfits, obviously, it seems like a lot of change has been happening in your life. Do you want to talk about like where the misophonia kind of like is situated, I guess, and all the stuff going on in your life right now? Like how is life for you right now in terms of that, our condition?
Yeah, it is. It's on fire right now. It's like,
Yeah, because I was gonna say like obviously it sounds kind of stressful, probably a roller coaster in life in general, and that's
yeah.
obviously not a good thing for misophonia
Yeah,
generally.
exactly. I keep learning that actually, which is ridiculous. Like I should know
Hmm.
that by now. I've had it for so long.
We all
But yeah, I
forget.
can. We all forget exactly, and when it's irritated or aggravated, I'm not thinking clearly. It just feels like there's no end. And so, what I will say about my discovery as of late is, oh my gosh, like being a nomad, which I am right now. Like I don't have a long term home. Um, it's like I have a lot less control over my environment. So if I have a long-term home, like I was living in Los Angeles and I lived alone, and I'm very conscientious about choosing homes where I know I have quote unquote control. So quiet homes. Now in this case, I'm traveling and I'm moving from place to place. Often, it could be every few weeks sometimes. Right now, I'm trying to stay in this place for a few months. But
Hmm.
this particular island that I'm on is very loud. It's just a loud island in general. There's a lot of, just a huge amount of, well, I'll just put it this way, like a huge amount of colonization going on here right now. So a lot of
Hmm.
building. So there's construction, there's loud music. It's just a loud island. And I'm finding it really hard to escape those sounds. And it's interesting because normally for me, misophonia is fairly specific. I mean, there is an overarching irritation just at like repetitive sounds, but for me, in the past, it's been mostly around eating.
Hmm.
But now I'm eating and breathing and things like that, the basics. But now that I'm on the road, it's being exacerbated by not having control over my living environments. So that's been a whole new discovery in like how to look after myself while traveling, while on the road, while not having a home. It's just, yeah, I'm learning a lot. Well, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, even though you're in a beautiful environment, you don't have your own personal sanctuary, so
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of maintain a personal space and
Hmm.
um, not just physical but like auditory.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for sure. And that's the most important thing for me. I always
Hmm.
have my own walls. I always have my own privacy because that's important to me for other reasons. But I can handle it's for me, like, of course, I like to have a beautiful home environment if I can. But what is more important to me is auditory privacy, to have the option to have a space, however big or small, where I can escape other people's sounds and just have
Hmm.
control over, yeah, the sonic space around me. And sometimes I don't have that here. So fans have been my lifesavers. I have one on right now, white noise. But we'll talk about tools after. I've been discovering a lot of new tools while being on the road.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'd love to talk about all that. But yeah, maybe we do want to rewind to kind of like before a lot of this stuff was going on, maybe back to childhood for you. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that that's kind of where things started.
Yes, yeah. Things started for me around the age of 11, 12.
Hmm.
And I mean, back then there was no term for this condition. And so my family didn't know what it was. I certainly didn't know what it was. All I knew was that I was very, very upset at the sound of eating. So I started wearing earplugs at the dinner table, the dining table rather. So
Hmm.
for every single meal, I would have earplugs in or toilet paper, and everyone knew that they had to turn the music on, not just on, but up. So, And it was mostly, you're aggravated by my family members. So back then it was, yeah, like I don't remember being irritated by my friends or anything like that. It
Mm-hmm.
was mostly just the people in the home, which of course is one of those, common
Oh yeah.
traits for misophonia. Yeah, mostly my brother. I remember like coming at him with a knife one time because
Oh,
I was so
oh boy.
upset by the sounds, and I just thought I was crazy. Well, no, I don't even know if I thought I was crazy. I was too young to think to sort of have that kind of self classification, but I guess I just didn't realize that there was something like different about me. It was just like, this is irritating. You suck. Fuck you. Like, I'm going to attack you with a
Yeah.
knife.
Yeah.
And my family was my mom was very supportive. And yeah, my whole family, like, even if we went to like cousins, like dinner or whatever it was, like, they all knew I would plug my ears with, I'm sure they all just thought I was wacky. But yeah, that's the time that I remember it starting. Oh my God, right now I'm just having another realization though. I think it may have started sooner. I think that there was stress. I'm actually curious to read some research studies about this. Like my parents divorced when I was 7, and being in my dad's presence at the dining room table was always stressful. Like
Mm-hmm.
he would get very upset by the sound of biting forks. Just even thinking about that just made my whole body tense up, my nervous
Yeah.
system. Um, yeah, he would get very irritated. So I'm like, wow. Now in retrospect, I'm like, I wonder if my dad has misophonia. But like either way, there was a lot of tension at the
Mm-hmm.
table. It was a time where I had to sit down with my dad, who was not like my favorite person back then to be around. So yeah, I think the dinner table was a tense place part of the time, and that may have been part of the beginning. But that was earlier than 11. 11 is around the time that I remember actively like doing something about the discomfort. So yeah, pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that there's a lot of overlap with, other folks' stories there. The whole walking on eggshell situation growing up,
Mm,
obviously, tense divorce, seeing your dad maybe a little dysregulated himself, at times,
mm,
and you kind of maybe observing that pattern, and yeah, there's yeah, a lot of interesting things there to
mm-hmm,
think about, which I want to say, I'm not a psychologist, but I mean, it's just these are common things that I've definitely heard in other interviews.
mm-hmm,
That's very interesting. In
mm,
but at least, great that your at least your parents seem to be supportive immediately and not kind of shame you necessarily. Let you stuff your ears with toilet paper. I mean,
mm,
that's not, I can't think of, not every parent would do that. So that's,
mm.
at least somewhat promising.
Yeah,
Um,
my dad wasn't very. He still isn't. He still doesn't get it. But
oh,
my
got you.
mom was.
Okay, so
Yeah,
does your
yeah,
mom.
yeah.
Okay.
Everyone else
Well,
was. Yeah, they just kind of
that
dealt with.
must be
They were just like
confusing in
weirdo.
itself too. Yeah, I mean, if one
Yeah,
parent is supportive and the other is not,
yeah,
that probably doesn't help a
yeah.
child growing up.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
and so, okay, and so you said like, yeah, friends were not kind of bothering you too much, but did you notice it at school? Maybe with teachers? Did it affect your kind of your grades or anything growing up?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't
Yeah,
remember any of that. And it could have
yeah,
been that I was just unconscious or unaware of the tie in because, again, I didn't actually, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but I didn't discover that there was like a condition until really just like
a
7
name,
years ago.
right?
Yeah, a name and the other
Yeah,
people had it, that it was a thing.
yeah,
So, like, even if I was aggravated by friends and this type of thing, I wouldn't have known or noticed
right,
probably.
right.
Well, anyway, for me, no, I don't remember that being yeah, being an issue.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. So,
So,
mm,
yeah, then obviously later on, like, yeah, I mean, actually, that happened to me as well. Like, obviously, I've experienced it at home. Don't remember it
mm,
so much at school or affecting too many of my grades. Like, and I remember final exams being in a giant gym and um, dreading hearing the coughing and whatnot. But other
mm,
than that, it wasn't so big of a deal.
mm,
It wasn't, yeah, it wasn't honestly until like about 10 years ago,
mm,
um, when, you go into the workforce and you start to get into open office situations, or you just kind of hear it in you get triggered in cities. So
Hmm.
I'm curious, like when you find out it had a name, obviously you must have recognized it immediately. Were you being, did it come back up later, like as an adult, after you finished school?
Um, Sorry, what was the question? So did
Oh,
like,
sorry.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
did
that's kind of rambling around there. But around the time when you heard it had a name, what was going on? Like, were you
mm,
being triggered a lot
yes, I
as an
was.
adult? Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. So, the sound of eating, which again has always been like the big one for me, that was always aggravated by mostly just my partners. So, unless someone was just a really, really gross eater, just like mouth open, nasty, it was mostly triggered by like roommates or partners, or family, of course, if I was around my family. But yeah, I was dating my partner at the time, and he was doing some research on it because I was very aggravated by the sound of my roommates just being in the house. I used to be so aggravated by just like hearing other people in general, which sounds extremely, I don't know. I mean, yeah, just difficult, of course. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was just like so irritated, and he started doing some research and found some interesting articles actually about shamanism and
Yeah.
yeah, some cool stuff. So that started to open things up for me. I was like, I'm a like I was like, okay, like this is some spiritual like gift or something like that, which I still think could be true actually for people like us. But I do think that it is a special gift that just hasn't, found its place in the world at this time. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we found some articles on this. I started to read it. I started to feel like, oh wow, okay, like maybe there's something to this thing. Maybe I'm not the only one. And then so that kind of opened the door to like, oh, maybe this is a thing. And then saw an article. I remember it was on Facebook, and it was just the image. It was a woman with her hands over her ears
Mm-hmm.
and said something about like, just like the pain of sounds or something. And I was like, ooh, that image appealed to me. Of course, clicked on it, read this article, my jaw dropped. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is a thing. And then I went to Wikipedia, and there was a name, and there are millions of other people. And it was just like, okay, the onset is usually around 11, 12 years old, and it's like the sound of toothbrushing and eating and da 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 da. Da. And I was like, oh my God, this is me. And just a huge sense of relief to know that I wasn't well, I never thought I was making it up. I knew it was a legitimate experience, but that there were others and that there was a name for it. And so that's
Man, it's
when that
validating.
discovery,
Yeah.
validating,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah. So that's when that started. And that was about, yeah, maybe only 8 years ago. So I really, I spent a good, oh my gosh, math for me. I spent a good, oh my goodness, like 15 years, like
Mm-hmm.
suffering without knowing like what it was. And I still learn about it every day, of course, now. But yeah, like really not knowing what to do about it. So that was a huge, huge relief. That
Right,
validation.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's not uncommon, and a lot of us go down that rabbit hole and want to learn everything we can we
Yeah.
can about it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so backing up a bit, so you said something. So yeah, might as well maybe jump in a little bit into. Sounds like there was some shamanism research happening around that time. Um, yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, what do you see? Maybe a link between the two, because
Hmm.
shamanism has come up on the podcast before. I don't know if you heard the
Mm.
page, the
No, I would
page
love to.
episode. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She does retreats in South America, and she has misophonia as well, obviously.
Mm.
And uh, there's links between shamanism and plasticity, brain plasticity, and trying to kind of rewrite old memories. Well, but I don't want to talk too much here. I'm
Mm.
just kind of curious.
Hmm.
You said something interesting about mi- misophonia maybe being kind of a gift that hasn't kind of been allowed to manifest in the world. What
Hmm.
did you maybe mean by that? Because this is something
Hmm.
along the lines that I've been thinking about as well, where we might be um, we kind of have a superpower.
Yes.
We're at a minimum more empathetic. than most people, and that could also
Absolutely.
overlap with HSPs, highly sensitive people.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm curious, kind of, I'm very interested by the idea of like, yeah, it not being recognized or be able to kind of like really show its full power in the world. I'm curious what you meant by that.
Yeah, well, that there were so many tabs that you just opened, which I would
Yeah,
love to.
sorry, I've been doing that a
No,
lot.
but yeah, like shamanism, and so I first of all would love to hear that episode. Which episode was it?
Hmm. Paige, Paige. I
P
forget which number
A
that was, but
I
I can
G
give you
E.
the
Okay,
link afterward.
perfect.
Yeah,
For
afterwards.
me, but also the listeners on this episode. That sounds really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the superpower gift, which I do see it that way. Even last night, just feeling my irritation with the sounds. It's like if you think about when we were living, we're communal creatures, of course, animals, right? We're pack animals, and we come from um, our historically we lived in tribes and communities and villages where we each played our role. And I think, genetically speaking, anyway, for those of us who have very refined senses, whether it be, sound, hearing, or even smells or sight, which HSPs, which I am also an HSP. Actually, it's hard for me to tell the
High
difference because I'm
five.
an
Same
M.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, high five, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, empath, HSP, like all those things. But yeah, it's like if our role in the village was to be on the lookout, to hear things, like to hear I don't know, the tiger in the distance, like we know how to alert our community, our tribe, things like that. That would be like a genetic or physiological purpose for it, something like that, just having those extra sensory abilities. So that's on the sort of like on the one level, sort of more of the scientific approach that I or the
Yeah.
scientific sort of viewpoint. On a more spiritual viewpoint, I don't know. This is gonna sound cuckoo, and we've talked to a lot of people. I'm curious if you've heard this before, but when I was younger, before I knew there was a name for this thing, I felt like I could. I love that I can just say this to you and not feel crazy because I've
Hmm.
tried to say this to people without misophonia before, and they're like, okay. I feel like I can read people's energy through the sounds that they make. And
Hmm.
so like I used to think that I could like see people's laugh. This again, I was like young, like a preteen, like hear their past lives or like their trauma for sure
Hmm.
through the
Hmm.
sound of their eating. Actually, wait, that reminds me. You just asked me before if I was activated by my friends in school. I'm having a memory now because I like was reading like one of my friends like historic traumas because I think she was eating with her mouth wide open, like just one of those like slappy kind of sounds. I won't do it now, but the one mouth wide
Yeah,
open.
yeah. Yep.
And yeah, it's like I could just feel her unexpressed anger, her unexpressed trauma, like her history, her upbringing, something, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but that was something that I for a long time felt that I was tapping into. So that might be some like
Mm.
metaphysical thing that's going on there. I don't know. But
Did you
yeah, the
know that
memory.
did you know that that person had a past trauma, or
No,
you kind of said,
no.
okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like even now, when I pick up on the sounds of their eating or other sounds, unconscious sounds that they might be making. It's not that I might not know anything about them, but it's like
Hmm.
I can feel this unexpressed yeah, trauma. Or maybe that's just
Hmm.
my own, projection of what it's doing to me,
Projecting, yeah.
traumatizing me, maybe just by the sound. I don't know. But that's been a space of inquiry. But certainly
Yeah.
in terms of just even the physiology of having very, very turned up senses, like that would be a huge asset to to a village, to a community, something like that. We would be attuned to things that most others might not be. Yeah.
Yeah, that's come up. Yeah, that's come up. I forget now on which. conversation that was, but it has come up where, yeah, I mean, historically, there needs to be somebody, at least
Hmm.
somebody who's able to kind of protect the pack, whether it
Hmm.
was when we were humans or even before that.
Hmm.
That's interesting. And I have thought about, are we also maybe in the middle of a genetic shift, and maybe, or evolution is playing with different um, variations of the senses to maybe see if this is somehow an asset in the
It's
future. Again, I'm totally speculating.
maybe it's interesting you say that. I was thinking about this last night, actually. I was thinking, I was like, maybe we would be weeded out evolutionarily because we're too
Right.
sensitive for what's happening to our planet. Like it's becoming more noisy, like noise pollution is a real issue. Or hopefully, like the hope would be that we're moving in a direction where we would be more valuable because we can be leaders. We can be leaders to help direct humanity towards a more empathic future,
Yep.
which is very important if we want to survive. Doesn't look like we want to survive as species, but that's another thing. As a
Yeah.
climate activist. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it seems like many of us don't want to survive, but as a species, I think you would,
Yeah.
hopefully, the optimistic view is that the species, we need to survive, and so we would
Mm-hmm.
figure it out somehow. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
it's not looking very promising yet, but hopefully, people like us can step up, like you are.
Yeah.
Um, maybe we can get it a little bit into, after you realized it had a name and whatnot. Where did your coping methods start to shift? Like, what did you learn on how to basically deal with it after that initial aha moment?
Hmm. What a good
What did you have to?
question. Um, gosh, I think it took honestly, I feel like I'm just learning those things right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
think
yeah,
on this one. Yeah. I'm not sure that I've had those tools besides the ones that I mentioned. So like knowing how to look after myself. Well, yeah. So just the basics of knowing how to look after myself at meals. And so, if I'm in even a public space, like I'm thinking of an airplane where you're locked into your seat, you can't just get
oh
up and leave.
God, yeah,
Because I normally will if I'm in a situation that is stressful, like in terms of eating, I'll remove myself.
all
That's a
right,
very, overt. That's a great coping mechanism. I categorically know which of my friends I can eat with and which ones are difficult. Like
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of one particular friend that I have who I love so much, but oof, wide open mouth chewing. Again, I hear a
Yeah,
lot of unexpressed trauma there, but
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
can't eat in the same room with her without like I need to have loud music and the whole thing. And so, yeah, coping number one would be to the loud music, potentially earplugs if I feel comfortable with that, and then to remove myself. But even, and I know this is true for a lot of other people with misophonia, visual stimulus can also irritate or aggravate.
yeah. I was gonna
So
ask
I
about
have,
misokinesia. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, what's it called?
misokinesia.
Oh, wow.
It's
I
a
didn't know there was a
Misokinesia. Yeah.
so condition. Wow, incredible. Okay, so that's
Hmm.
great for me to know. Thank you. So
Sure.
I will, I have no shame around this. Like when this will be an exciting tab to open as well. Like I do, it turns out I surround myself with people who are neurodivergent for sure. And several
Hmm.
of my best friends do have misophonia. I just realized this the other day. And like some of them are more polite than I am. And I am very polite as a human being. I'm Canadian and I'm very kind and loving and I'm
Hey,
an
did you
empath.
say you're Canadian?
I am.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm a dual now,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Oh, high five.
yeah,
I'm high fiving you.
yes,
Love my Canadian people. So yeah, there's that like sort of, politeness ingrained into
yeah,
I'm just culturally, but I have no shame in protecting myself. So if I'm on an airplane and my miso kanisha, is that it?
yeah. Right? Yeah,
Is
perfect.
if it's aggravated, I'll just shield my face. I don't care. I'll put my hand up so I'm blocking that person completely. I'll put my headphones on. Oh, headphones are, well, you're asking, your question was about in the past. So those are the things that I've done in the past, and I'm happy to speak to my tools now, but that's always been key is just like
Yeah,
no shame, block the view if you need to,
yep,
put the earplugs in, always have earplugs on me, always, like in everything, like in my makeup bag, in my pocket of the jacket, of my other bag, like they're in my car, there are earplugs everywhere.
And earplugs are enough for you. Like you don't need the sound on top of it from earbuds, like your headphones.
So it depends. It depends. Yeah, if the sound is so bad that I can't, that earplugs don't block it, then I probably need to remove myself from the situation.
Right,
If I
right, right.
can't remove myself from, well, actually last night, for instance, now here's the thing, I have a hard time like identifying what's misophonia and what's just being very sensitive, but like last night there was very loud music playing in the distance and I could like
Mm,
feel the vibration. So last night and it did activate this, my nervous system was on edge the way that, not as bad if it was someone eating in my ear. That would be like
right.
unbearable. But it did aggravate my nervous system in a very similar way. So then I put my earplugs in and then I put my noise canceling headphones on over top.
Oh yes,
So I'll
I've
do
heard of
things like
that.
that
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, being on the road, I guess this is speaking to my current coping. I don't know if you're
Yeah,
ready
yeah,
for
yeah.
that though. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, being on the, and I was just talking to my friend about this the other day. She has misophonia as well, and I was like, I carry my big headphones around now, like my noise canceling headphones everywhere, and I wear them a lot on this
Mm-hmm.
island because it is a loud island, like I said, and so I just have them on sometimes with not being on, just on my head, just to block
Right.
out the
Just to
sound, and
cancel. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like a soother for me. It doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of the forest in a cabin alone and it's super quiet. Like at this point, I need earplugs to sleep because it is a soother. It's very comforting for me. I've been wearing earplugs now since I was 11 for like eating purposes, but
Mm-hmm.
I do not wear earplugs at the table these days, by the way. If I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a quiet space where people are eating, like I will just request or demand that music be put on. But I love eating in restaurants. But yeah, I'll put those headphones on while I'm traveling anywhere, everywhere. Like they're just on me all the time. So that's been a huge, huge aid, which that's not normal for me. Like when I have an actual, like my own home, I obviously
Yeah.
prefer not to have something on top of my ears or my head, but it is like it immediately puts me into my own little cocoon. And of course, listening to things like binaural beats or theta waves, things like that can be very helpful if I want to turn them on. But those have been my main tool while being on the road. Never mind. Of course. Oh, you know what? I ordered these. I was really excited to order these loop earplugs, which I'm sure you've seen. They were
Yeah,
sold to me
I
on
have a pair.
Instagram. Oh, you do?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. I was talking to the same friend who also got very excited about them because they're so cute and they're supposed to cancel out certain frequencies, but so far they don't do that for me. I think they're very cute, but not super effective. How about you?
Yeah, I think I have the same. I did a little Instagram story post about it. I feel the same way. They look good. I mean, I have kind of a audio background. I was in the audio industry for a while, so I
Hmm.
was immediately skeptical that a
Yeah.
tiny piece of material. I mean, you can't selectively block frequencies from something. Just a piece of plastic that's small. So, um, but
Mm.
yeah, what I liked about them was that
Mm.
I had the kind that you can kind of twist a bit and then it goes in
Mm.
deeper.
Okay.
So I like the fact that you can kind of like go in, you can go in deeper and block a little bit more sound, or you can kind of twist it, and then it's not
Mm-hmm.
quite, it's still in your ear, but it's not as blocking for like conversations, or if you don't really need to hear your jaw
Mm-hmm.
make every move. That's the other thing I don't like about earplugs so much is that you really hear your inner jaw movements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my go-to is like AirPod Pros or something like that, or
Mm.
headphones. The loops, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of. Never going to have them as a sponsor, I'm sure, but um, yeah, I have the same opinion. They look good, but
Yeah.
don't help me too much.
As a musician, it sounds like you maybe in the audio world as well. Like as a musician, I have like very high end in ears, which are
Mm-hmm.
used to yeah listen to music when you're on stage. So you actually, of course, can choose very much choose. The whole purpose is to be able to choose which frequencies you want to hear, which channels you want to hear more or less of. And I had like a those ones, of course, are those are like very expensive, but there was a cheaper pair that I ended up with at some sort of music event that I loved because they really did take out certain frequencies. They were for shows, so not as a singer or performer, but as an audience member.
Yep.
So to just cut the edge, but still be able to engage in conversations, and those were great. I lost them, but that's the kind of thing that I feel like we would really benefit from having something like that. But I don't know, man. If somebody's eating next to me, like I don't think that any kind of frequency,
No, you got to remove yourself at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
or block, just block,
Or block.
block the ear holes all the way.
Yeah.
It's not just a frequency that you can like partially, yeah, block out or something like that. Yeah.
Right, right, right. No, it's great. Yeah, because you hadn't when you were talking earlier, you mentioned earplugs. You hadn't mentioned headphones, so I was curious
Hmm.
if you were when those became a tool. It sounds like those are your tools now. That's your kind of primary tool now while you're traveling.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. That's my primary tool now. Never was before, but and they're kind of
yeah.
cute too. There's no shame in wearing your headphones at the
Actually,
gym,
so
wherever. Yeah.
did you mention which brand you have?
I didn't, and I don't
Okay.
want to because I'd be like
Okay, sure.
advertising this huge, huge, huge
Gotcha,
brand.
gotcha. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And that I don't actually need to advertise because I wouldn't necessarily suggest them.
Right.
They're well, whatever. They're Beats headphones, and they're
Gotcha. Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah.
I think there are probably better ones out there. Do you know of better ones like over the ear?
I have the Sonys. There's
Okay.
also the Bose, but the Sony, I forget. It's like a bunch of letters and then a number, and then there's the Mark IV.
Hmm.
They're all, yeah. I mean, they're all around the same price, around the 300 ish. And obviously Bose has theirs too. But I happen to have the Sony over the ear ones, and I like
Okay.
them. I usually go for my if I can, I usually use my AirPod Pros because they're just easier to take in and out, and they just
Hmm.
I don't know integrate better with some of the hardware I have. But those are kind of my go-tos.
So the thing um, that I don't love about these gadgets is that
Hmm.
they need to be used on Bluetooth. Well, they don't need to, but I prefer that.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
do not love having like Bluetooth blasting my brain all day. I'm sure people have different opinions on that, but I mean, I've done a bunch of reading on EMFs, and
Yeah.
as a highly sensitive person, I can only handle so much of that. So, it's a bit of it's a bummer because otherwise I would have in ears and all the time, or yeah, like wireless earbuds in my
Right.
ear. The reason I wear over the ear headphones is because I just don't want those EMFs like going right into my ear. I know it's basically the same thing, but that's another element I try to be conscientious of. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, if that's a concern, it is different frequencies, and I
Hmm.
do like being wired because I don't have to worry about batteries either, and then
Oh, okay.
just the whole, I mean, obviously just the whole connecting and disconnecting,
You're
and
wired,
such.
so then you have to carry your phone on you.
If you're wired, I'm not always wired, but if you are
Hmm.
wired, yeah, you'd have to have your
The device
phone
on you.
or laptop, with you next
Yeah.
to you, or
Yeah. If you're like sitting there working or something like that.
so.
Yeah.
But you could then use your watch to, well, different depends what you have. You could use your watch to control it and just have your headphones connected to it somewhere
Right. Right.
next to you. Um, so yeah, so switching for maybe for other tools, like
Hmm.
did you ever at some point, I don't know, talk to a therapist or getting into more psychological maybe
Hmm.
tools or spiritual tools? I'm curious if you talk to anybody about misophonia.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I took it to therapy. My therapist when I was living in Toronto had my mom come into a session and eat in the room with me. I think I might have,
Really?
yeah, I think I might have done that with a partner. Thing is, it's so difficult because when it's like in a spotlight like that, it's not aggravated in the same way because it's more of like an unconscious behavior that's
Hmm.
aggravating. Um, so that wasn't necessarily helpful. And after so many years of having it and looking at potential, I'm distracted right now because someone is blaring music next door, and that is aggravating to me. When I'm in my own room, my own space, I want to be able to decide, wow, they're playing music extremely loud. Interesting. So yeah, fun timing. Live and
We're
direct.
witnessing a live trigger,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so what I'm doing right now is I'm feeling my body from the inside. So I sort of like tie in my training around meditation, which I have many years
Yeah.
of practice, and just like telling my body, sort of just feeling that's where I'm tense, where I'm holding, contracting, and breathing into it and releasing and just making sure that I stay relaxed. It's like it keeps getting louder. And the
Hmm.
rest of the work is just mental, besides like
Yeah.
trying to calm my nervous system, I have to psychologically get myself on board with what's happening because I don't have control over it. So to say, like, it's
Right.
okay, you're safe, like, this is just music, how can we enjoy it? Here's the interesting thing, and there are so many psychological elements to
Yeah. Yeah.
Misophonia.
Yeah.
If I was in the room where this music was happening, which I'm going to put myself there as soon as we're off this call so I can like actually recover, if I was in the
Right.
room with it, I would be okay with it. It's being on the, so like same thing with like traffic sounds. That's a big
Oh.
one where I am here. Like that, there's just so much traffic everywhere.
Yeah.
And so if I can hear it in a distance, like it grates on my nervous system, the sound of like mopeds, like very loud
Hmm.
bikes in the distance. But if I'm driving in traffic and I can hear these loud, bikes, I'm okay. I don't know what it is, but it's like yeah, it's just different to be in it, a part of it, rather than being like on the
It's more of
outskirts of
an
it.
maybe it's more of an apparent danger if it's far away, but if you're in the middle of it, you see it. It's almost like you have a little bit more control. Like your brain's able
Yeah,
to your brain's processed it and told you that it's not a danger. Similar to the self soothing you were just talking about. I've mentioned on the podcast as well. Is trying to tell myself before I go into a meal or something, hey, nothing's going to jump on you and attack you and kill you.
yeah,
It's okay. And then that kind of, that's one way to calm part of your nervous system. Sounds like you go further with meditation and doing some body scanning. Maybe it seems like
yeah.
looking for parts that are feeling it.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes at this point, it's like pretty hard for me to calm myself down. So I really, mostly what I do is just find a way to protect myself. Like that's my main coping
Hmm.
mechanism. In cases where I can't do anything about it in the moment, I'll just protect myself the best that I can. So yeah, but yeah, I'll do my best with meditation. I guess to go back to the therapy and like my mom coming in and realizing
Yeah.
like, could I do NLP for years? Could I like do deep therapy? Like, could I quote unquote recover from this thing? I don't know. Maybe, but am I interested enough in doing that? No, I don't want to. Like, I
Hmm.
don't want to do that kind of work. I want to live my life and just accommodate to this. I mean, I want to say irritating condition, like, cause sometimes, like right now I am irritated by the trigger. So yeah, it's irritating sometimes. It's hard to manage, but it's like, I think easier probably just to manage than to try to do like therapy, on this thing. Cause from what I've read, like, I don't think that there's a cure per se. I think there are coping mechanisms and ways to, reduce the irritation. But yeah, unless you've heard something different.
I'm here to announce that. No, just kidding. No,
Yeah, yeah, that'd be
yeah,
great.
you're right. There's no
Yeah.
cure, but you're right. There are, yeah, right, exactly, a battery of coping methods. Not all of them apply or, might be useful to everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a wide range and there are more that are being taken seriously. There's the CBT stuff, which is a lot about trying to well, there's many parts of it, but trying to at least in your mind, trying to take control of the sound, maybe kind
Mm-hmm.
of make joke about it or just kind of
Mm-hmm.
reinterpret it. Think of another sound which sounds like it. But there's also process like going into your past and trying to process
Mm-hmm.
your earliest memories and just trying
Mm-hmm.
to kind of reinterpret that from what used to be a maybe a scared child that was trying to warn itself of imminent danger, and then just kind of speaking to that child as an adult now and telling it what actually happened, and that can somehow
Mm-hmm.
release that memory,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of help your modern self reinterpret it, sounds, and not warn you of a danger that doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
there are different coping methods. And they apply, differently to different people. Hopefully, we're converging on something that might apply to more people. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, I think so. I actually had therapy about misophonia like 2 weeks ago. Um, I'm still in therapy, but with a different therapist. Highly recommend therapy. It's so great. And my
Hmm.
misophonia was just like really, really, really fiery because I had just moved into this new space and there was way more sound than I thought there was going to be. And I was very stressed out in general. This is about life things.
Yeah.
And I told her I got to the bottom of like the stress. The stress, it's like, look, in this moment, there's music playing in the room next to me. It's
Yeah.
irritating as fuck. My whole system is like very contracted right now.
Correct.
I wish I had control over it. What actually is the most concerning to me, and this is what came up in therapy, is that I'm concerned that the stress or the cortisol levels are going to like basically, shorten my life or give
Yes.
me a heart attack and early death or something like that. Like, are these cortisol levels like unhealthy for me to manage in the long run? Like, that's my concern. Can I handle these loud sounds in the moment? It's irritating, but life has irritations all the time, right? We don't have full control over our lives, and so we have to
Right.
deal with all sorts of irritations. And as my therapist said, humans are genetically uh, have the ability to handle stress, on a regular basis. That's our bodies are built to be able to withstand regular and constant stresses, like, perhaps historically speaking, in terms of potential predators or dangers like that. So, yeah, it just really helped me to hear her say, "You're okay. You're not going to die. Your cortisol levels are okay.
Hmm.
You just need to, manage the discomfort, temporarily." So that really, really, really helped me. It helps me to hear science. Like, I need to hear the explanation for something and to understand that, that I'm not going to have like a heart attack or something from this. Like, I'm going to be okay in 15 minutes or something like that. So that really, really, really helps me. Otherwise, I get into this concern bubble of like this being something that is very, very dangerous to my entire system, on a long term, basis or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've had similar thoughts. I mean, I even remember having a conversation here on the podcast with somebody who guess he was also misdiagnosed that he was basically heart failure was imminent if stress levels got too high. So that kind of really um, added to his stress, as you can
Mm-hmm.
imagine. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is not definitely not um, unusual for a lot of us who
Mm-hmm.
obviously are very self-aware. We think deeply about how we're what's going on with us, and we're
Mm-hmm.
not given a lot of answers from the
Mm-hmm.
outside world. Actually, I'm curious. You said you
Mm-hmm.
started therapy a couple of weeks ago. You're in Indonesia. I'm just curious in general. Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
the misophonia awareness there, or mental health awareness there? Is your
Oh
therapist
my gosh.
there, or
No,
remote?
no. Yeah,
Okay.
she's remote. I've been seeing her for 5 years.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah. So she knows me very well, inside and out. And yeah. So wait, what was the other part of the question?
Oh yeah, so I rambled again. It was basically misophonia and mental health awareness in general in
Mhm.
Indonesia.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's like no awareness of that here. Maybe for travelers, maybe for
Yeah,
tourists or
expats or
travelers or
whatever. Yeah.
nomads or expats. Yeah, like there's so many different categories. Yeah. So, like, for instance, one of my best friends here that I met here, she also has misophonia. So yeah, there's a definitely a community of conscientious folks who understand what HSPs are and empaths and things
Hmm.
like that. I'm also in a yeah, you could say alternative, on a very alternative island. But in terms of like the local people here, no, I'm sure there's probably no awareness around misophonia and mental health awareness. Gosh, I doubt it. Which is so interesting. And actually, I mean, I think that you're much more attuned to the research since we have podcasts about this, and I've done my best to avoid misophonia being the forefront of my reality, just because I feel like the more I talk about it, the more it is exacerbated. But
Right.
to your knowledge, what are the demographics for misophonia? Like, is it more men, more women? Is it, are like Caucasian people more affected? Is it prevalent in other countries? Like, what do you know anything about that? Now I'm
Yeah.
interviewing you.
Great question. No, great questions. Definitely more women identify, but I feel like that it's definitely not exclusive to women by any means. But
Mm-hmm,
more women identified. I mean, I
mm-hmm,
hear that anecdotally, but also just looking at the statistics on my social media followers and
mm-hmm,
listeners. But I think part of that might just be because this is such a weird and shamed um, condition that men
mm-hmm.
are less likely to speak up about it or take it seriously.
Yes, yes.
I talked to uh, you know friends of mine who are still in the people can just snap out of it kind of situation. So men are not going to speak up if that's what they're going to hear usually.
Yeah.
So but I don't think it's necessarily anything particular about women that makes them more likely. I think it's just unfortunately how we're socially wired these days
Yeah.
to not speak up about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
In terms of yeah, other demographics, I don't know. Like obviously it's just more, even though it's we don't but we still don't take mental health as seriously as we should. I think it's taken more seriously in the West still.
mm-hmm,
But I've had people yeah, I was just talking to a college student at Karachi University in Pakistan who was doing a
mm-hmm,
research project on it, and she was interviewing me, and she wants to make it um, more wants to raise the awareness in Pakistan, which I'm half Pakistani. I know
mm-hmm,
there's no awareness there, and it's
mm-hmm,
and it's but I feel like it's just the information is spreading, and I feel like it will
mm-hmm,
take some time to go around. But I don't think there's anything specific about the West that makes us more misophonically prone. I think it's maybe just identified as something else in other countries. I know,
mm-hmm,
and I won't ramble on much more, but I know in some cultures, like I grew up in a very Muslim religious household.
mm-hmm,
A lot of the times in religious uh, play and kind of religious upbringings, if anything that's kind of like um, out of the ordinary is considered fixable by God, basically, or
mm-hmm,
just kind of being more pious, right? Being more religious. And so I feel
mm-hmm,
like probably a lot of it gets kind of like, you know, thrown under those kinds of blankets.
mm-hmm.
And I think if more people hear about it, they might be able to separate the two and get some real help. So I don't know if that answers your question, but generally,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
it
think
does.
I don't think it's yeah, I don't think it's anything biological about certain cultures, but I feel like yeah, it's cultural why some are identifying more than others.
Yeah, I think this would be really great research because unfortunately our condition is still seen as being made up.
Yep.
And, and starting to hit the mainstream, I've seen, several, actually it's been mentioned in the news a few times, friends of mine will always send me, articles and things like that. So there are articles, more people know about it. So I think that it would help a lot if there were studies done in other countries because it would help to yeah, the idea that we're like, I don't know, there's this sense of like, oh, it's a privileged condition. We're
Right. First
privileged,
world condition. Yeah.
first world condition. And I mean, I've asked myself that question. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
it's a privilege to be able to put myself into a safe space, right? Into a room that is private and quiet, which I actually can't do in this very moment. But when I do have like when I was living in Los Angeles in my little like cabin on the mountaintop, like that was a privilege to have that kind of sonic security, you could say.
Hmm.
And so I've asked myself that question: Is this a privileged condition that was like psychologically, you know, maybe it is more psychological, which of course a lot of people who don't believe that misophonia is a real thing, they'll say, oh, it's just psychological, you're making it up, which is
Right.
100% not true. I just want to be like, you want to step inside my body and like feel there is a real reaction happening physiologically. One of my best friends who has it as well, uh, she she feels nauseous. She gets nauseous when she hears the sounds. But
Mm,
anyway, sorry, I digress. The point is that those
no.
research studies would be interesting for so many reasons. I would be curious to see the results. Like I'm okay if it is true that it is, more psychological, not psychological now, but like there was some sort of trauma when we were younger and that has
Yes.
affected us psychologically. That would be very interesting. But also, of course, what those research studies would do, as you said, would help to support people in other countries who would need that kind of support. And I don't know, maybe I'm ready to, since I'm already such a public figure with like everything that I do, I'm like maybe I'll start talking about misophonia publicly more. There was something else I wanted to say about sharing about misophonia. Da, 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 da. It'll come back to me, but I do think that it would be very fascinating to have more studies done. Yeah, internationally. That would be really, really. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was talking to my friend because, yeah, everything I do, like especially public facing, is
Yeah.
about protecting, our planet, the future of our planet. I just don't really see anything being more important because if we don't have a planet like to live on, then we're by, like there's just
Mm-hmm.
no more living. So I was saying to my friend, well, if I put more energy into misophonia, like if I was to be more public about it and share about that, I'm afraid that I would be like, first of all, off brand because I've built everything
Mm-hmm.
around being like motherfucking nature. It's who I am. Right.
Right.
So she was like, no, it's not off brand. She's like, that's totally connected. Like it's sound pollution, which is so true because like, I'm sure you know too that, or maybe, I don't know, but, or maybe some of your listeners do, don't know about this, but we have species going extinct due to, certain frequencies in the air, certain birds and sound pollution is a real issue, not just for us, but for many animals. Ooh, this is actually some pretty juicy information that's coming up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting tie-in too, is sound pollution just in general and how that affects the ecology. Yeah, ecology, our surrounding environment. So,
Yeah, there's another podcast called The Rest Is Just Noise by a bunch of like PhDs
hmm,
who are working on studying
hmm,
sound, and I think they've got a number of episodes on ecology and noise pollution and the real effects of sound. That
ooh,
might be an interesting. I'll try to dig up a link. I
I
subscribe
would
and
be,
I'll send you a
yes.
link to that.
Will you
But
please? That would be wonderful. I'll poke you. There
yeah.
were a few things I'd
Oh
love
yeah,
for you
yeah,
to
yeah.
send after. Yeah.
No, for sure. And then the other thing,
Mhm.
the other way it's not, I don't think it's off brand at all, is just because obviously climate change is something that you know a lot of people take seriously, but a lot of people ridicule and think it's
Mhm.
we don't we don't you have or shouldn't you be like more concerned about making in, increasing the GDP and then than saving a bunch of trees, and
Mm,
so
mm,
there's and so it's kind of like a in one way people kind of are painting it as like a privileged thing to be worried about, like, hey, you're
mhm,
in the West, you don't have to worry about a bunch of stuff,
mm,
now you're just looking for things to complain about,
mm,
um where so there's some I feel like there's some parallel with misophonia where again
mm,
people just don't take it seriously and they think we're just
mhm,
kind of like looking for things to whine
mm.
about or complain about, so
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I guess I'm coming back to, I know we're closing out here soon and
oh
I
yeah,
would just,
sorry. And I know
no,
you
no,
need to
it's
get into
okay.
that other room as well, but
It's calm right now and it's incredible. It's
great.
incredible that I can feel my entire body just relax when there's the quiet. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's such peace. I love it so much. It's just such relief. Yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I just, in terms of tying this into climate change and being sensitive in the world, like and for your listeners to just say, obviously probably anyone who's listening has misophonia or is, in a relationship with someone who has misophonia. I
Parent,
do
yeah.
believe, yeah, a parent or a partner, my partners or lovers are definitely affected by the fact that I have misophonia. Oh my God, I'm dating a guy right now who eats like, I mean, he's a giant, first of all, like an actual, like he's almost
Mm-hmm.
giant sized. And so he's just like very like heavy breathing and
Mm-hmm.
just this kind of thing. And it's really, it's challenging. But anyway, so for anyone listening, just to say, I truly do believe that the way forward as a planet, as a species, is to allow sensitives to lead the way. A lot of sensitives aren't as vocal as someone like me. You know, I don't have any problem. I love being on stages and I'm a public speaker. Like, that's great. A lot of sensitives may not be that type of a leader. But if we want to, you know, literally survive, we're going to need to start listening to each other, not just as humans, but to the millions of other species that we share this beautiful planet with. We need to start listening. And some of us have these refined tools, these ears of ours that hear things that maybe others don't. And I just want to encourage us to take care of ourselves. I'm talking to myself too, giving myself a pep talk, to take care of
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and to honor ourselves and to realize, as you said at the very beginning, like, it's a superpower. You know, let's change the conversation around this to nurture and to take care of this very beautiful skill. And if we can do that, flip the switch on the conversation and really step into leadership as sensitive people and take a stand for those who need to be spoken for. You know, I think that this is a really important time for empathic leadership, and a lot of people with misophonia probably are empaths as well, or HSPs, whatever. I mean, there's just so many different categories, but
Right.
yeah.
No, that's great. I can't think of a better way to kind of end this on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lila, and
Thank
yeah, wish you
you.
wish you the best in Indonesia and
Thank
all your
you.
life changes.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure just talking to other people about
Yeah,
a condition that has been, I've had so much shame around it most of my life. It
right.
just is really satisfying and comforting to talk to people like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Lila. I hope you got to find a quiet space away from that music. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or just hit the 5 stars wherever you listen to this podcast. You can hit me up by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website misophoniapodcast.com. It's even easier just to send a message on Instagram at Misophonia Podcast, follow there, or Facebook, and on Twitter or X, it's Misophonia Show. Support the show by visiting the Patreon at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. The music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.